Hey Juan, how's it going?
Hey Moises, how you doing today?
Doing well. Happy to be back with day two of our Q&As with our amazing short films filmmakers from our special program that we've been running for the past week and a half on our on-demand page. Tell us what it's been like to be able to program some of these amazing short films and then have them made accessible to a widespread audience.
Yeah, I mean it's really an amazing opportunity for us. Apart from normally you here in San Diego, for the most part, these films have not just these films, but the films that play during the festival. They all only have a chance really to play at our festival, and sometimes they don't come back. Maybe sometimes a film will host a special screening at a school or a college or something like that. But it's a rare opportunity to bring what that we have to bring them back, and you know, uh, trying to make light and bring out a positive note to everything that's been going on in the last few months has really given us the opportunity to initiate this Latino Film at Home initiative and kind of bring Latino films and kind of highlight these filmmakers and their stories to a larger audience. Because now you don't have to be in San Diego. You don't have to be in San Diego to watch these films. You can be watching it in anywhere in Latin America if you wish, or Australia or Europe or whatever. All you have to do is just log in and rent the shorts.
Yeah, and the shirts are available through our Vimeo on demand page, and then you'll see the link if you're watching. You'll see the link appear on our ticker on the bottom throughout the Q&A, and the shirts will be available for several more days. So if you haven't had a chance to watch these amazing short films, please make sure to to subscribe and watch them and share them with your family and loved ones. So during the festival, I booked the majority of the feature-length films, so I don't get a chance to see a lot of the short films. So Juan, tell us about the process that you went through in selecting these six, best of the fest films.
Yeah, so throughout the festival, we split our shorts into different programs. There usually is about 11 different programs, maybe one per day, or 11-day festival. We work with a selection committee, and we kind of narrow down our hundreds and hundreds of entries. Of course, it seems like each year there's more films, but also with more films, the competition keeps getting not. I guess well the competition gets more fierce between filmmakers. Like the content is stronger and stronger each year. But for these six films, we kind of try to narrow it down to U.S. Latino filmmakers, and kind of just have a variety of some of the best shorts that we had. We kind of want to have a broad program where maybe there's like a documentary, some comedies, some dramas, a thriller, to just kind of get the full effect of the different genres and content that these filmmakers are creating. Is not just is not all films are about one subject or one certain thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazingly said. So before we bring our filmmakers on screen, I just want to remind everyone that we also program films at the Digital Gym Cinema, and we're doing that virtually now. So every week we're adding new films to our rotation. So if you're interested in what the Digital Gym Cinema has to offer, visit digitaljym.org. For example, this week we're running the Diana Kennedy documentary, which focuses on Mexican cuisine. So if you love cooking Mexican food, if you love Mexican food, this documentary is something that you should definitely check out, and you can access it on digitaljym.org. So I guess without much further ado, should we get started, Juan? Do you want to maybe cue up the first clip in Filmmaker?
Yeah, right now we're gonna see a quick clip of Marissa's Chibas Preston's documentary "Finding Shelter," and then right after the clip, we'll jump into a conversation with her.
Okay, great. So I'm going to cue up the clip now, and we'll get started.
Have you seen many children alone, unaccompanied, riding these trains?
Well, there's been a surge in the past few years. They ride by themselves. I mean, those that you see that make it to the U.S. live through hell. You can't think about the odds or else you wouldn't be able to do it. You know 40% will die as a result of murder or kidnappings, right? And those are the ones that never make it. They die on their way, and many try over and over again, determined to get across.
This train is not free. You pay, believe me, you pay. Why are so many willing to do this?
I mean, it's simple. They're living in extreme violence. In these countries, more than half the population want to leave.
Hi, Marissa. How you doing? Thank you so much for joining us.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. I think you were mentioning to us just a little bit ago that you're a professor. You're right now. You're been pretty busy teaching online. Well, all power to you. I know that must be hard right now.
Learning to teach online.
Learning to teach online. We're all learning to live with this different ways.
Yes.
But yeah, I think you have it a little harder right now than a lot of us. So I guess we can start talking about Finding Shelter. Amazing documentary.
Thank you.
I just wanted to. I guess we can start off with the fact that as I was watching it, I didn't realize it the first time I watched it until maybe the second or third time that you were actually the writer of the play that it's based on. And I guess I just wanted to see if you could talk to me more about that process. How was it? What was it always planned to make a documentary about it, or were you just gonna do the play and then it kind of turned into a documentary?
Yeah, we were just going to do the play. I'm director of Duende CalArts, which is part of the CalArts Center for New Performance, the professional producing arm of CalArts. And I read an article in January of 2014 about the unaccompanied minors, and it really hit me. I just thought, oh my God, this is devastating. This was before the big, that summer, there was a big influx of kids seeking refuge here in the United States. And it really grabbed me. So I, approached my team and I said, can we do a play about this? They were totally into it. And at the time we have for many years been working with a teacher, David Levine, in a high school downtown in Glassell Park. And he connected me to some recent arrivals. I interviewed them. They were a part of every stage of the development of the play because we had a few workshops. We had a Mexican director, Martina Costa, incredible director, and a great team of CalArts, at that time, current students and alum, designers and actors. And we just all got into this workshop and started, along with the kids and their stories, developing the play with a lot of research. And we did it in Lincoln Park, which is near downtown Los Angeles, outdoors. And then we did it at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., which was an amazing experience. And we wanted to keep sharing the stories. And we thought, oh, wow, we've got all this footage of the interviews, of post-show discussions, of people who were involved. And we thought, let's keep humanizing the immigrant experience. Let's keep sharing stories. So that's how the idea of the documentary came. And then one of the girls whose story is in shelter narrates the documentary. So she's like we follow her voice. We protect her image because, actually when we made the play, things are so much worse than they were for immigrants. We had great hopes that things would get better, and they've actually gotten worse and worse. It seems like every month So it feels like, even though this journey began, 6 years ago, and the play was done 4 years ago, it feels more relevant in many ways today, as we continue to try and give voice, right, to the situation.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting that you said that one of the narrators, it's also her story. I think it was very, very nicely edited into the form where, like, as they're telling their story, you're also seeing it in the play. I thought that was really interesting, and kind of it almost made me feel like I got to see some of the play, even though I haven't gotten to see it. But I kind of get the idea of what it is, and it just made me hungry to see more of it. Really, but are you has the play still playing and around anywhere in around CalArts or in California?
It hasn't in a while.
Mhm.
We're scheduled to present, actually, the documentary in the fall at a festival here in Los Angeles, but we don't have any plans right now for the play to continue. Most of the
Mhm.
cast have dispersed, although we've thought of, like, just doing it with a new group, and again, continuing to share the stories because they're relevant. And it's been very interesting, the response for both the play and the documentary, because our audiences, have, or my interest was in sharing stories for people who've been through something like this, or been through something like this, or know someone who went through something like this, but then also to inform for people who may not know about the situation. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, as you probably are aware, here in San Diego, we're really close to the border. So was it maybe a year and a half ago when we had the whole caravan coming in? We had a lot of children like that who came by themselves. A lot of families stuck at the border, and yeah, it's been as you said, it's been a journey for all of them, and it just seems like there's no end to it right now. And yeah, I don't know.
yeah. I mean, we have to do some drastic changes, and there seems to be a kind of amnesia in the
Mhm.
culture of where most people who live in this country now, where their ancestors are from and what they went through to come here. Um, and it's, a lot of times you'll hear, well, it's against the law. Well, the laws can change and should
Yeah.
change, and they have changed. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, from the time we made the play to the time we made the documentary, it became a criminal offense
Mhm.
to cross into the United States, right? It was a civil offense before. So now you can't even cross over at all. You can't even seek refuge. I mean, people have always been able to seek refuge in the United States. It's one of the
Yeah.
things that made us so strong, is our ability to have that humanity, to see that, right? And to, when people are in need, to offer sanctuary.
Yeah, I think it was one of your interview subjects that brought up that point. Ruxandra Weedy. I'm probably
Yes,
butchering her name.
journalist.
Um, but she mentioned how it was hypocritical that it's scary to offer acceptance to, like, when it's a different skin color. When we've done this for hundreds and hundreds of years here in the U.S., it's a country of immigrants, a country that's always accepted refugees. But I wanted to also ask you, I know when documentary filmmakers are in the process of making their films, they spend hours and hours with their subjects, sometimes even before they even start the cameras rolling. But since you did the play before this,
Yeah,
I'm guessing that you also spend even more hours. So maybe let's talk about how the length of time, maybe from when you first started, even pre-production or your play, just or research, your research stage actually, up to when you had the documentary. How long was that process?
Yeah, it was a 2-year period from initial reading that article in the LA Times to us opening the show. And then another 2 years after that for the documentary to be made, about another 2 years. Yeah. And I visited a shelter in San Diego. There was a professor in Georgetown who wrote a book called Whose Child Am I? Susan Terrio. She gave me a lot of research. I interviewed the kids, and really, it was very interesting because they were recent arrivals. They had just come to the United States. They'd only been here a few months, and they were like 13 and 14 years old. There were 7 kids that I interviewed. And they had been offered by their school, to be able to speak to counselors, because this is a really traumatic trip they took. They were fleeing for their lives. And they didn't want to, but they did want to share their stories within this context of the play. And I think, one of the most rewarding moments I ever had was when we did the very first workshop, and one of the girls whose stories in the play afterwards said, "I feel represented." And I just went, okay. It was the most nerve-wracking moment I'd ever experienced, was that night when we shared the workshop for them. So it was a long process, a lot of research. And then when we did the play, we also were doing youth empowerment workshops in the community. So we had footage of that. We teamed up with Carecen, which is an incredible not-for-profit that does very important work helping immigrants and from Central America in particular, but not exclusively. And so we performed actually at Carecen. We did youth empowerment workshops for some of the kids that study there. So there was a lot of living in this world of talking to a lot of people and hearing their stories. And even when we performed, because we also performed at some community events and things like that, there were people who we performed for who worked on behalf of immigrants, who really felt like, oh, I needed to see this, just to know that the kids are not just invisible, right? Or immigrants in general are not just invisible, that my work is actually matters,
Yeah, it sounds like a very like tiring for the soul at a certain point. Just kind of hearing heartbreak after heartbreak. I mean, it's probably nothing compared to what they live and what they feel, but I think I could imagine being kind of like devastated from one story to the other sometimes.
Yes, but also there's another side to that too, which is the incredible heroism and the spirit that says, despite everything I'm being called and the horrible rhetoric out in the world about who I am fighting for my life. I'm fighting for my future. I'm fighting for something, to make something of my life, like the young woman who narrates, who wanted an education, who didn't want to, she was basically refused to join a gang and was going to be a slave, basically, and that's what she was fleeing. And she's my hero.
Yeah. It seems like we have a question. Moises is sending it through right now. Says Ethan says, we work with a lot of young teen filmmakers. Any suggestion for them as they try to enter the film biz, make their own film?
I mean, I just think it's important to make work with what you're passionate about. Know what you love. I think it's a mistake to try and imagine what people want to hear or see. I think that's a dangerous rabbit hole. But if you are working from a place of passion and really believe in what you are, your subject matter, then you can't go wrong. You know, that's my advice.
Oh, that's a beautiful answer. And then Genevieve Filipiak says, what do you hope the viewer takes away about the immigrant experience after watching the documentary?
That immigrants are more than numbers. That a lot of the hateful rhetoric out there is just inhumane. It's not the reality. I remember there's one of the points in the play, and we have a section of that in the documentary. We chose to take commentary from a New York Times article where the kids who were fleeing are referred to as refugees, and there was just this tirade of response to that. And I remember reading the commentary and just thinking, it was a Sonia Nazario article, and thinking, oh my God, we have to stage this because there are all these different voices, you know, and it was pretty, even when I hear it now, sometimes some of the language, I'm like, oh, even though I've heard it thousands of times at this point. And at one point, one of the people's comments says, what kind of mother does this, lets her child, you know, go by themselves? And it's such a wrong perspective in so many ways. But what we need to ask ourselves is, imagine what it would take for you to let your child go, or even encourage them to go. Like, imagine how bad it must be that you are in that situation where I mean, I'm a mother. It would be unbearable. So
it's a bigger pain in some way. Like, I could imagine, just you have to separate yourself, but also you're sending them away. You don't know. You're sending them to an unknown, basically.
Yeah, but that unknown, sending them to that unknown is at least better than what you're living. Imagine how difficult that must be. I mean, that's what we have to do, is have that compassion and empathy to imagine a situation that leads to this, right?
Yeah, definitely. Was this your first documentary, or have you made other documentary films before this?
This was my first documentary, but my first short was screened at San Diego Latino Film Festival.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So
you're an alumni then.
Yeah, alumni, and I really appreciate the support, and because that opened up this whole world of filmmaking for me. I think it was just all but 5 years ago, you know, maybe a little more. And yeah, this is my first documentary.
Wow, that's awesome. Do you have any final comments for the audience or anybody who's watching?
I think support the arts, support organizations like Carecen, and keep your hearts open. And I think let's see if we can do something about these laws and change them.
Thank you so much for joining us, Marissa.
Very much.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, and we hope to have you back here as DLFF in the future with another film, short, narrative, maybe a play. We'll do a live reading or something. I don't know. It'd be awesome.
That would be great. I'd love it.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
All right, everybody. So now we're gonna switch over to Eddie Mujica of Dreamer and Moises Esparza, our exhibitions manager. They'll be doing a Q&A, but before that, we're gonna see a short clip of Dreamer.
I'm John. John Echeverria.
It's Juan Echeverria.
Not anymore.
Look, I don't know what you want, but you need to get out of our house before I call the cops.
You really think that's a good idea, Juan? Who will they believe when they arrive?
It's my house.
You really should be leaving. It's almost dinner time.
Hi, Eddie. How are you?
I'm great, Moises. How are you?
Good, good. To remind everyone who's just tuning in, we're doing a Q&A with the writer and actor of the short film Dreamer, which is playing as part of our Best of the Fest Shorts program that's available on our SD On Demand page. And then you'll see the link playing on the bottom. So if you haven't seen these short films, make sure to do so. They'll be up for a couple more days. And that answers one of the questions that came up from Franco, who had a question about Finding Shelter. So if you're interested in watching Finding Shelter and also Dreamer and DESECHO, the third short that will be featured during this Q&A, please make sure that you follow the link below. And Eddie, like I mentioned, Eddie wrote Dreamer and stars in it. So do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about the short, a brief synopsis, maybe like the elevator pitch?
Sure. It's essentially Latinx Black Mirror. It's what happens when a Latino comes home one day to discover that he's been replaced by a lighter version of himself. So I played the whiter version of the actual protagonist, Juan.
You mentioned Black Mirror, very popular sci-fi show. Someone yesterday suggested that we put together a short film program of just Twilight Zone themed films, which I think Dreamer would definitely fit within. Tell me a little bit. Tell me a little bit about how you decided to frame the immigration discourse and rhetoric that's happening in the United States around maybe the science fiction genre.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a big fan of the genre. I'm primarily, my background is in comedy, but I love watching, I watch more of like sci-fi and that sort of things than I do actual comedies on my like spare time. But when it came to something like this, before I came out to LA, I was in Chicago at the Second City, and I performed and wrote, sketches for them. And a big thing that they stress is satire. And for me, the way that I can still be funny, but try to say something while I do it, I feel a satirical take on it is the way to go. And I really liked looking at this. You look at Black Mirror, and it's near future. It could be happening not just like years from now, but a couple months from now. And I just like taking this, let's talk about what's going on right now, but if things were to get way out of hand, what would that look like not too far from here? As a hope to not only entertain the viewer, but also sort of make them think about like, wait, are we heading down this path, or are we already kind of there?
Yeah, and colorism within the Latino community is, I think, really, really prevalent, and your short addresses it without being preachy or even over the top, really, in a sense. So tell me a little bit about how you went about as a writer trying to tackle this theme, and maybe a very subversive way.
Yeah, I think, thanks for that. And that's something that you struggle with as you write it, because at first when you're thinking, like, I think of, the neighbor, right? Like, he should be wearing a red MAGA hat or something. But it's like, I didn't want to just put that over the head. Like, let's just kind of like touch upon these things, and really just drawing from, I feel like if I speak out of separate from my own experience, then it can start to get preachy. But I felt that it comes off authentic because it's a part of what I have dealt with. I'm a lighter skinned Latino who, at times here in the industry on the performance side or on the acting side have been told that I don't look Latino enough, or, so that made me think of like, well, what does that even mean? How are you going to, I grew up in South Florida surrounded by, Cubans. Like 100% of my neighborhood and the city was Cuban. So it's like I thought that's what I was. So what does that mean to be Latino or not Latino? So I just thought of like, let me pull from my own personal experience and share that and hope that that will come across as not preachy and just kind of like, oh, okay, I'm like, it seems like this guy sort of has been through that, and I have, without all the sci-fi stuff.
Thank you for that response. And I'd like to remind everyone that if you have comments or questions for Eddie, type them in your Facebook comment section or YouTube, and then I'll be able to bring them on screen so that Eddie can answer them. I guess my next follow-up is really about the title of the short, Dreamer. I guess in my mind, when I first queued up the film, I thought I was going to get into a different type of movie, something that's been really politicized with this administration and really like in very different and various political movements is the term dreamer, where these are perhaps the immigrants who have been the chosen ones to be the exception, when in reality, all immigrants deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. So tell me a little bit about how you landed on this title.
Yeah, so the working title, I knew this wasn't going to be the title, but the working title, even when we were leading up towards right before, we were scouting locations and whatnot, was White Latino. Like that's just the name that I had. But I felt that as, Dreamer not only is this buzzword, but it also fits in with, at the very end when, I don't want to spoil it, but based on what happens, I feel that the title tied in well with not only touching upon a word that is out there and people know about, but is kind of what's going on in this near future scenario and what is happening to these immigrants who are being sort of sought after by government officials.
Yeah, watching the short, it also struck me that beyond maybe Black Mirror, there was an element of, the Stepford Wives, kind of like this perfect domestic setting that's being kind of tilted on its head. So I'm interested in learning more about your, I guess, inspirations as a writer and actor and filmmaker.
Sure. Like specific other projects or films that influenced this particular one?
Yeah.
Definitely when me and my director, Chris Sturgeon, who's super talented, he's a really great guy, fun to work with. We both talked about, we were putting together storyboards and we used like the colors from Minority Report, like that sort of blue kind of hue, similar to, I guess, like Black Mirror. But yes, I actually, in conversations with Sarah Amini, another fantastic actress who plays Sarah, and I actually wrote it because I wanted her to play it. As soon as she read it, she was like, oh yeah, this is like Stepford Wives, right? And I was like, absolutely, that's how it should be. You should play this character. So for sure, Stepford Wives, Minority Report, and what else was it? And then, yeah, a little bit of The Matrix, a little bit, towards what happens later on in the film. But those were kind of things. Anything set, and of course, Black Mirror, anything kind of like near future-esque that has sort of that. I'm trying to think of a film that sort of dealt with a robot, because my character was playing like a robot, like what I watched to kind of get those moves. But, something like an Ex Machina or something like that.
Yeah.
I feel like for sure also played into it.
I was thinking maybe like Blade Runner. There might be
for sure
influence there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So we have, since this is a very interactive chat, people are tuning in from San Marcos. So Alexis, thank you so much for joining us during our chat. And then we have a question from one of our listeners, which kind of goes into the influence topic. So what inspired you to get into filmmaking and writing? And that's a question from Marlene Yeva.
Oh, great. Thanks for the question. Yeah, I've always been, since a young age, I was the type of kid, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out here, in Hollywood trying to do the same that have this, but like using my parents' camera at a young age to make little films. And I just felt always called to it. And I've really been focusing on the filmmaking and writing side over the past couple of years, because I've always been that and an actor. But when you first come out here, I was like, okay, really focused on acting. And I feel like the power that we have as filmmakers and writers is that we get to, especially, coming from underrepresented groups, that we have the power to sort of tell the stories that we want to tell. I got sort of especially inspired for filmmaking and writing, but also writing this particular project, was that I got tired of auditioning for things that I felt either I was told I wasn't Latino enough for, or I just wasn't interested in the story. And I felt like this doesn't resonate with me. It's not what I want to be putting out there. And I felt like doing something like this was, I got to have fun making it, and I got to have some comedy in there, but I also got to tell a story that I wanted to tell that could lead to conversations like this, or that we have at the end of the festival during the Q&As, to sort of have audiences thinking and talking about it afterwards. And I feel like you can do that as a filmmaker and writer. Not that you can as an actor, but you have more control with the material, right?
Yeah. And, I want to talk about your film's ending without spoiling it, which I won't do. But, it resonates. It resonated with me, at least in a very, very deep and significant level, in the fact that a lot of the rhetoric that's out there is about manufacturing realities and experiences. So I guess, personally, what do you hope that someone takes away, or what message do you hope someone takes away after watching your short film?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think it's just to sort of think about that. What happens at the end? Is this something that we are moving towards? Like I said earlier, how much science fiction or fantasy is this? Not just in our community, but in other underrepresented communities. Even in the past few days, there's still a lot of, terrible things going on in this country. And I hope that through, as me as an artist, I just only hope that through this sort of work and the work of my fellow filmmakers, that we can leave audiences thinking about these things. Yes, I think entertainment should be an escape, but also it's a great platform for us to sort of spearhead these conversations. So I hope that the audiences go away feeling something at the end. I hope you laugh throughout, but I hope at the end you're sort of thinking like, oh, if it sort of hits you, it's like, well, yeah, that's life, right? So that, I guess that's what I hope the audience takes away from it.
Yeah, thank you for your response. We have more questions coming in. One more about kind of like your influences, if you could spend a little bit more time on that. Magdalena Chavez wants to know, or is asking, were there any non-sci-fi Latinx films, shows that served as inspiration? This seems like an unexplored genre in Latinx film.
I agree. Yeah, I had the pleasure of being in this film festival, which, thanks again. I mean, the San Diego Film Festival was so fantastic. All around, the programming, the staff, the experience was great. But being at this film festival and other film festivals, I feel like, especially Latino ones, you don't see a lot of this. And I feel like, it's something that should absolutely be explored more. Would love to see it, because I know we're out there, we're doing it, right? We're fans of the genre as well. As far as others that non-sci-fi that served, for this one in particular, I feel like most of it was, I wish I had in front of me our little mood board that had all the photos. But I feel like for the majority for this particular one was specifically sci-fi. But with my other works, I look at things not just in the Latinx community, but other types of films as well. I'm sure there's one in there, but I can't think of it at the moment.
We can go back to it if you remember, for sure.
Okay, great.
We have more questions coming in. One from Franco Guillen. Hello, Eddie. Were you raised by Spanish-speaking parents, and what is your goal when it comes to the movie industry?
Oh, nice. 2 questions from Franco. Thank you.
2. Yeah.
Love it. Yes, I was raised. feel very fortunate. I was raised in Miami by my Cuban immigrant parents, and my first language was Spanish. I was like in the English as a second language, like in kindergarten, those classes. But they spoke to me in English and Spanish growing up. It was my older relatives that I had to speak only Spanish with. So I'm super thankful, because being in this industry, not just on the acting side, being able to audition for various projects, but to also, as I'm writing, to have Spanish in there, and natural Spanish, as opposed to, you see some things sometimes that don't feel as natural, as authentic in dialogue. When it comes to my goal in the industry, it's funny because I love doing this because, yes, I consider myself a multi-hyphenate, and I'm an actor and a writer and a filmmaker. And I've considered myself more towards the acting writing side, and will continue to do that. But I had a meeting with someone, it was a Latinx production company actually, and she was looking over my work and she was like, "Oh yeah, so you're an actor, you're a filmmaker. Like that's what you are, you're a filmmaker." And I really like the sound of that. It feels like it resonates well. So that's what I want to be. I'd love to be, ultimately, the big goal is to be a filmmaker that is telling these kinds of stories with some blend of comedy, but being able to star in them as well or be a part in them. You know, I look at someone like a Jordan Peele, and probably Get Out was some inspiration in this as well, for sure. But a Jordan Peele, another minority who started off in comedy and now is known as this great filmmaker, I would love to follow sort of like a path like that.
So Franco says, muchísimas gracias, buena suerte. Thanks,
Gracias,
Franco, for the questions. A few more comments came in. I think Beth Comando's comment got cut off, but I'm guessing it's going to say, great conversation. Thanks for doing this.
Oh yeah, thanks for, conversation. Yeah, thanks for doing it, and thanks for leading the conversation. This has been great. Yeah, I love doing this. And the one before was so great. I can't wait for the next one to stick around and watch this. It was such a great film that I got to see at this festival. That's another great thing. Like, you know, people put stuff online, but also going to these festivals, getting to see things that aren't online from fellow filmmakers, and seeing them on the big screen was such a great experience. And then we get to mingle afterwards and have these conversations. So I'm glad you all decided to extend that this year, given everything that's going on.
Yeah, we're trying to recreate some of that magic virtually.
It's working. It's working.
Good. You know, I think your film is so distinct in its tone and aesthetics, which is why I think a lot of people want to know more about your inspirations. So we have two questions at the end that say, what inspires you the most, and how long does it take to put, like, I've seen this is how long does it take for you to put a work together? And then I'll pair it with this other question, which is also, what was your inspiration behind this film? So we might have had people joining in later. So if you want to maybe reiterate some of the comments from earlier.
So yeah, just to recap, as far as the inspiration, you know, I'm an actor and a writer. I've been doing a lot of acting, but got sick and tired of the auditions and the work that I sort of was in front of me, and also being told that I wasn't being questioned about my authenticity and my identity when it comes to being a Latino or a Latinx creator. So that was my inspiration. I wanted to tell a story that addressed that I felt like was not being presented to me. So I feel like, yeah, when it's not out there, we have to sort of take it in our own hands and make it ourselves. And as far as how long it takes, this particular one, you know, I came up with the idea. It's a short, so I was able to just quickly write. You know, you go through a couple drafts, but I wrote, what was it, like 8, 9 pages, 10 pages. Have this great relationship with Chris, the director of it. Reached out to him. We were on the same page, and then it took basically just a couple months from the idea being written to then sometimes you have to wait for the schedules to line up. We shot it over a weekend at our friend Sarah's house, who was in the film. So just a couple months, but sometimes the great thing nowadays, especially these days, you can film something while you're stuck at home and put it online or share it within a day. As far as like higher production value, I don't know, it might take some time, but I can't wait till we're able to be back on set making things again.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie. We actually have one last question that came in. We definitely want to give everyone a platform to hear your feedback, so I'm going to throw it on screen. This one's from Justin Morrison. The question is, so many of us persevere in this industry, making a living in various ways, sometimes without the benefit of making a living in the role we'd prefer to be identified with, a writer, actor, filmmaker. Would you share how you make a living and how that work impacts your daily life?
It's a
fantastic
question. Yeah. Thanks, Justin. Yeah, I mean, right now, I say I'm a writer, actor, filmmaker, but according to the government, I'm unemployed. You know, so like I had a day job. I was very fortunate that I had I would go off and audition, and as an actor, I would get to book commercials here and there or side projects that would sort of help out, supplement our income. But I had some friends of mine who are also filmmakers and writers, have different jobs, whether they're working in the service industry or whatever. I was working as a producer on the CBS lot for one of their shows, and that was my day gig. So it was great because it was tied into the industry, but sometimes then you fall in the trap of like, even if the job is tangentially related to what you're doing, it's still a job and it's taking up the time and effort of what you really would like to be doing. So I feel like I was fortunate to have, I don't have that job now, given that, you know, everything was shut down. But I feel like we all kind of, if we say that we're actors, writers, and filmmakers, you know, we are that because we are putting in the work, and it's just a matter of finding the time and extra time. You know I would do it. I'd wake up at 5:30 in the morning to go to this job, come back later in the day, and then know that I have to get up early, but and do regular things and be a regular person, but know that I have to, we have to find the time to create this art that we want to create. And I wish I didn't want to do it. I wish I didn't have the passion to do it, but I do. So I have to scratch that itch somehow. But I wish, you know, the person who asked the question, everyone else, the best, you know, it can be very tough. Yeah. Thanks for putting it back up. That's how I make a living, and it can impact your daily life in a negative way sometimes when you have that little bit of time to make this work. And you kind of feel like negative because, you know, you're like, oh, I don't have the time to do this, but I want to be doing this thing. So I feel like make sure that the work that you're doing, that you really want to be doing, you keep that precious and like sacred to yourself, because otherwise the work that you're doing outside is going to influence it in a bad way. I know it's a long answer to the question, but I hope something got out of there.
No, it's a great answer, and it's fantastic to hear your feedback. And I think everyone listening really appreciates how candid you're being and how honest and transparent you're being. Because not everyone is afforded that type of transparency, particularly in the business, you know, that you work in.
Right.
Did you have any last questions or comments for us? Or for the people who, not questions, sorry, comments for everyone listening?
Well, no, I mean, to you, Moises, thanks for doing this. Everyone that was listening, whether you asked questions or were just being a part of the conversation by listening, thank you for doing that. I hope you're able to check out the film if you haven't, as well as all the rest of the films. The ones that I was able to see at the festival, they were fantastic. Yeah, there's the link. But yeah, if you're a fellow, I mean, obviously, if you're listening in, you either have a passion for your fellow Latinx people or Latinx friends, but you're also interested in the industry. So, and doing this. So if you are, please, I'd love to see your work. So we need all of our fellow people to be out there and making stuff. So I hope you're writing, I hope you're planning, and I can't wait to see what I and other people come up with next.
Thank you so much, Eddie. And just some last comments. Thumbs up from Cesar Reyes.
Thumbs up.
And then Merlin Yeva says the film was great.
Thank you.
And also a thank you. So Eddie, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for this wonderful conversation. And we can't see, I guess, your next projects.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Okay, talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, Moises. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye. So coming up next, we have Julio Ramos, the director of DESECHO. I'm going to play a brief clip, and then Juan will bring him back on screen. So make sure that you have your comments and questions ready for that. Thank you.
La verdad, deja de ser chistoso, cabrón. Ni siquiera has acabado ahí. ¿Qué escoges, cabrón? ¡Armando! ¡Armando, córrele! ¡Ven para acá! ¿Qué pasó? ¡Ven rápido! ¡Rafa! ¡Mierda! ¡Rafa! ¡Haz un lado! ¡Haz un lado! ¡Haz un lado! ¡Rafa! ¡Rafa! ¿Estás así, cabrón? ¿Qué hacemos? ¿Qué hacemos? Tráeme un tarp. ¿Qué? Una lona. La pones aquí, doblada. Rafa. Mierda. Joder. Rafa, vas a estar bien, cabrón. Aguanta, ¿sí?
Hi, Julio. How you doing today?
Hey, Juan.
How's your quarantine been?
It's been okay. It's been busy in certain regards and not so busy in others. So I think like most people were trying to endure this difficult moment.
Mhm. Has it been a source of inspiration of any kind?
There are many things that has happened in my life recently that have inspired me in many ways. I don't want to go too much into details, but it has, yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's fine. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about the premise of your film for those who haven't seen it before, who are tuning in?
Yes, DESECHO is a thriller set against the backdrop of labor trafficking in the U.S., and it's about the foreman in a construction site and the way he deals with an accident that occurs in the construction site. So he has to resort to very unconventional methods to save the day.
Yeah, it was a very hard-hitting, very intense film, I felt like. We can start talking about maybe your decision to shoot it in very long takes. To me, I think it added to the tension. I felt like I was part of the group there that around the gentleman that fell off the roof. We were following him around. I felt like we were following them, trying to see what to do with him, and then following Armando's decision and how he was going to handle the situation. Had you envisioned shooting it like that the whole time?
Partially, I think we definitely plan for longer takes, longer than usual. But I didn't think it was going to be that long. I mean, the film, I don't want to spoil it, but there are very few takes, you know?
Yeah.
And we didn't think it was going to be that few, or you know, so it wasn't really until we got to set where we realized that once we had the actors and the camera, you know, we blocked it. We did it over and over again. You know, we realized there is no need to cut. You know, we should just continue rolling. And basically, that's what we did, right? We basically cover about an average of 4 to 5 minutes, I believe, right, per take.
Yeah, because I think your short's only like what 13, 14 minutes.
Yes, 14 minutes.
Yeah, and I think there was maybe 3 or 4 at the most takes, and I was watching. I was like, whoa! Like the first time I watched it, I didn't realize it. I was just so kind of enthralled in the drama and like what was going on. And then the two three times afterwards, I was like, oh my god, this is like technically is another level also.
Yeah, that was a very great discovery as a filmmaker. You know how people tend to be more engaged the less you cut, you know. So because we didn't have that many cuts, and because what was happening on the screen was very intense, people tend to be compelled by what's happening, right, and not really pay attention to the aesthetics of how we executed this film.
Mm-hmm. And how long did it take you to block this and shoot this?
We basically did one take for day, you know, except for we shot for 3 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
And spoiler, you know, we have 4 takes, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the last day we had to do 2 takes. So the last day was really hectic. We had to go over time, you know, but essentially we did a take per day. We basically took the whole morning to just block it, you know, rehearse, make adjustments, also rewrite the script. We had to do a lot of rewriting, you know, because of the way we were shooting it. There were lines of dialogue, beats that were not coming across, that felt flat at points, so we had to either cut out or adjust, add stuff, you know, just to keep up with the intensity of the events in the story. So because of that, it took a very, very long time to settle on how, what's the day going to be and when do we cut. So yeah, essentially we did 15 to 20 takes per shot.
Per day. Per shot. Oh,
Per
wow.
shot.
It looks like we have some questions coming in, which is gonna push them through for us. All right, Mega Carlos asks, what advice can you give to people attempting to follow your footsteps?
My footsteps? What footsteps are you talking about? Because I went far. Well, I don't know. I'll tell you this. I am very compelled by immigrant tales. I love thrillers. This film, just is a blur of both subjects, that I find quite intriguing. I watch a lot of international cinema as well. So I love realism. So I guess I have like little different inspirations, that molded towards the making of these films. And to be honest, if you see all of the films that I've made so far, they are, kind of like the same subject, theme, and genre. So yeah. I always start with something that it's quite intriguing, Like, for example, in this particular case, labor trafficking, once I understood what labor trafficking means, after further research, I realized, I just posed a question, what happens to a worker, who is under these circumstances, under these conditions, what happens to that worker once they get injured? Do they take him to a hospital? Do they abandon him? Do they report him? Do they kill him? So a lot of questions, a lot of answers start filling in, and make the film darker and darker and darker.
Yeah, it takes a really dark turn towards the end. Let me see. We have another question coming up. Says, hi, Julio. How was working with Tenoch Huerta by Chaito Mendoza?
Tenoch was it's just amazing. He's a great guy. He's so professional. To be honest, since the conception of the story, Tenoch was in my head. I'm not from Mexico, but I'm from Peru. But I've seen his work at film festivals. I remember watching Güeros at Berlinale many years ago. I just fell in love with a guy, and then when the time to make DESECHO came about, there was no other person I wanted to work with. So I was lucky to have common acquaintances with him. We were able to attach him to the project. So after that, he was really easy to work with. We flew him from Mexico City. So yeah, he was fun on set. It was a great experience. The greatest part about it is that he has a lot more experience that I have, and because of that, I feel like I learned a lot by working with him. To be honest, all I had to do is just give him the script and let him be, just make minor adjustments here or there. He nailed it, he nailed it with very, very little direction.
It's interesting that you mentioned that you're Peruvian, and because it seems like the characters, well, to me, I'm personally Mexican, but the way they talk and their accents, they all sound Mexican, and their mannerisms, their slang sounds Mexican. It all felt really natural, which sometimes when you have a filmmaker making a film from another country or with characters from another country, you don't get that. Was there a lot of maybe like what's called the improvising by them, or was it all kind of like written by you from the beginning?
Oh no, I did. When I wrote the story, I had Mexican friends going over the dialogue just to give it that spice, you know. But no, I had to let the actors be themselves and really correct any things that I push in there that are not authentic. So they helped a lot. You know, they helped a lot with the mannerisms and the slang and how things are said. You know, a lot, to be honest. And that's the other thing. You know, it was really great working with the Notch, but really the whole cast, the whole. You know, it's just it was such a blessing working with all of them. We had coming from New York, Karen Karagulian, who is the boss, you know, and he's been in all of Sean Baker's films. So and also, you know, when he was on set, he had this vibe, you know, of being the character, you know, from beginning to an end, you know. So it was a very intimidating person on set, to be honest. Then the rest, you know, Hansel Ramirez and Jorge Diaz, Abraham Luna, and Danny Yar, you know, all of them are really great actors, you know, and they all brought authenticity, not only in the Mexican part of it, but also the Russian speaking side of it. Because as you know, this film has 3 different languages, right? Spanish, Russian, and English.
Wow, that yeah. Here we have another question from Eric Morales. He asks, what kind of advice can you give young filmmakers who are thinking about making a career in filmmaking?
Well, to be honest, I want to say that I was extremely lucky, you know, to take an opportunity that was given to me, which was to continue my education, and I took the opportunity and I went to UCLA, where I did my master's in filmmaking. And I feel like if it wasn't because for that, I wouldn't have able to have the time and also sources to explore, you know, to find my voice. So that worked for me, you know, a person who is not really, who goes out and get it and just shoot anything that they can, you know, with their cell phone. You know, I really need a structure that helps me push, you know, move forward, you know. So if you can go to film school, you know, to a good one, if you have that chance, that opportunity, by all means, take it, you know. So.
Awesome. I think we have another question from Stephanie Armendariz. Did you spend time with construction workers to give your film its authentic feel?
My co-writer, co-producer, Lucas Mireles, he's also a filmmaker and a great filmmaker, director himself. So he's from Texas and he's half Mexican. So he also brought a lot to the project. He had a lot of experience in the construction sector, you know, in Texas. So that was one source that we have. On top of that, I have friends, you know, I have friends around Los Angeles who, you know, I just have a conversation with. I have, you know, a beer or two, you know, just to get a sense of like how things go. But to be honest, it wasn't so much about construction. It was more about immigration, you know, like how to get to this country, you know, how crossing the border, you know, being smuggled by a coyote, you know, endangering their lives, you know, so finding themselves in situations that are very complicated, like the one that you see depicted in the film, and so forth.
Yeah, I think it was interesting when I think the Russian character mentions like, yeah, for whatever reason they don't leave the property, and the other guys are asking Armando what's gonna happen to us. Like, are they gonna take away our mattresses? Are they gonna just not feed us today? They were just kind of scared for their lives. But I didn't, like I said, like the first time I was so enthralled in the drama that I didn't catch all those little lines, and it made me realize afterwards that, oh, these guys are being held captive. Like, they don't get to go they don't get to go home after. They don't work a full day and then go home to their families. Besides maybe Armando, who's talking to his wife at the beginning, which was, it was just, it hit different, I guess.
Yes. So labor trafficking, right? So that's that was the beginning of the story, right? This is the inspiration of this, making this film. And if you read the very first drafts of the story, you get a lot of exposition and explanation about how this world works and operates, but when we were actually making the film, that's what I was mentioning before, that many of those things were cut out because it just felt heavy-handed, and but I'm glad that you and the audience is able to catch on. These are not just regular or illegal immigrants per se. We're looking at something else, right? We're looking at something more complex than illegal immigration.
Yes. Oh, and I think we have a comment from Marlene. Go Bruins.
Yes.
Go Bruins. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Julio. Do you have any final comments or for audience or anybody interested? Anything you would like saying?
Well, I just want to. It's been a fun journey with this film. You after the festival, you're going to be able to see it in HBO now and Go. So watch it if you can. Again, if you have a subscription, and it's been a long journey, and one that I'm very proud of. I just want to thank my whole cast crew. Especially my family and my fiance. They were really supportive throughout the whole process. To be honest, if it wasn't for them, there wouldn't have been a movie made.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much again for joining us, Julio, and we wish you the best in all your future endeavors, and we hope to have you back with a new project at the film festival. Magdalena Chavez says, we will definitely rewatch and show to my family.
So. Watch it. Yes. Thank you, guys. Have a great one, okay?
Thank you so much.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye. Have a good one.
Hi again, Juan. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? Welcome back.
Well, that was another amazing round of Q&As with super, super talented filmmakers. We were talking a little bit earlier before about creating some of the festival magic virtually, since our festival was postponed in March. So I want to thank everyone who was able to tune in and ask questions and make comments. It means a lot to us as a festival to hear your feedback and to have you participate. And it's also amazing to hear directly from the filmmakers.
Yeah, thank you so much for everybody that joined and online. And thank you so much to the filmmakers for coming out and helping us reshare their films once more with audiences. Like I mentioned earlier, this time is not just for our audiences here in San Diego, but also it's a widespread thing. So if you guys have family in other areas, you can share the link that's still available until Thursday, tomorrow Thursday, and they still have a chance to watch the films no matter where they are in the world.
And we got some feedback from people from listeners that hasn't been placed on screen. So Jordan saying hi, it's Juan. Hey Jordan, thanks for tuning in.
Hey Jordan.
And then Juan, you had a few shout outs earlier.
Oh, hi, Riley.
So we want to just make sure that everyone who participated gets a chance to see themselves on screen. And here's another shout out for Juan.
Oh, hi, Carmela.
It means a lot to all of us here at the festival that people are participating in these activations through Facebook and YouTube. And we'll be updating our SE Latino film channel on Vimeo with new offerings very shortly. So please stay tuned. We're gonna be adding some amazing feature films and then some more short films. So we're gonna be engaged with you for the foreseeable future until we relaunch the festival, which we're very excited about. The Facebook and YouTube pages will remain active throughout the week. Tomorrow we have our Sonido Latino virtual concerts beginning at 6 p.m. at the same channel. So if you're interested in listening to some amazing music, just subscribe and follow us, and you'll receive a notification about what we have coming up. We mentioned earlier that we have the Diana Kennedy documentary playing on our DGC virtual theater. So if you're a fan of Mexican cuisine, make sure to tune in. And then also, if you want to support the festival and the nonprofit that manages the festival, the Media Arts Center San Diego, we do have a donate ticket link active below on the ticker down below. So if you're able to do anything to ensure our sustainability, feel free to do so. And we're so thankful for all of your support. Juan, do you want to leave us with any closing thoughts about the short films that we just saw, curating, or even themes in general?
Just overall, I think it's a good reminder that our festival is really here because, one, the filmmakers, and two, the audiences. So thank you guys so much to both for joining us. And to our audiences, continue watching Latino film, continue sharing it. The only way that we will see ourselves represented more on screen is if we're consuming the product. So God, that's the bigger one. To filmmakers, continue sending us those great films, because make our jobs harder every year. We love it.
Very, very well said. Just a reminder that the shorts are still available for you to watch through our Vimeo platform. The link is below on our ticker tape that's scrolling at the bottom. That's it for now. Juan and I will be back with new filmmakers and our new offerings on our Latino Film at Home initiative. Thank you so much for tuning in. Any last thoughts, Juan?
That's about it. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night.
All right, have a good night, everyone.